Look, it's me, the BlackBored Economist. And the last structure that I want to examine, or the last model within the structure I want to examine when we're talking about the oligopoly is before we looked at when the oligopoly firms decided to collude. Okay, so they were acting as one. That's in the previous video. I want to look at an oligopoly structure now when the firms decide not to collude. So they're going to actively compete against each other in this particular market structure. That's going to create some very interesting dynamics, right? So in this structure, for the oligopoly, the firms are going to choose to actively compete against each other. For this one, they're not colluding, so it's the, let's call it the non-collusive pricing model. And sometimes it's referred to as a kinked demand model. And you'll see why momentarily. So in this structure, firms choose to compete, okay, i.e. not collude. So unlike the other one where they were colluding and acting like a monopoly, this one they're choosing to actively compete against each other. And I'm gonna admit, it's a little bit complex, okay? So pay attention. We're gonna use the board here and we're gonna examine this model using a graph. So let's go. Let's set it up. Here is our quantity, and then we're gonna have our price, our cost, and our revenue. We put all three there. Price, cost, revenue, and that's the quantity. The firms are choosing to compete against each other. And the example I like to use for this, an oligopoly structure where the firms compete against each other, think about gas stations across the street from each other. So you've ever seen that? The Chevron over here and the Arco right across the street, okay? They're not colluding. They're essentially watching each other because of the mutual interdependence, but they're competing against each other. So keep that image in the back of your mind. Gas stations across the street from each other, watching, that's the mutual interdependence, but they're competing, okay? Now, let's say the Chevron gas station attendant looks, and when they look, they're watching how many cars are lining up going into the Arco. And the Arco is also looking. This is me pretending they're looking through blinds. They don't have blinds, but you know what I mean. They're looking, and they're watching how many cars. So they're competing. When they watch each other so much, they need to figure out what they're going to do next. And they have two options. Have you ever seen the guy with the little hook, hooking the price at the gas station? I love to watch them do it. Take the little and they hook it. Usually, they watch each other and watch what the other one is doing before they go up there and change the price. So when these firms choose to compete against each other and they watch with that mutual interdependence, they're trying to figure out, should I match that person's price or should I ignore my competitor's price? That's what they're doing. When they look and they look at the price, they say $4.50. Should I match it or should I ignore it? They look and they say $5.15 per gallon for gas. Should I match it or should I ignore it? Those are the two decisions. If a firm decides to do the matching game, their demand curve takes a particular shape. It is very flat, meaning if the competitors are watching and one firm decides that I'm going to be matching my competitor's price, the demand curve comes out looking very flat. And I'm going to call that the D match so we can label it. If you're wondering why is it flat, let me explain. If it is the case, actually I made a mistake here. if they choose to ignore, not match. My boo-boo. If it is the case that the firm choose, when they change the price, the competitor chooses to ignore, not match, ignore, then the demand curve comes out looking very flat. And I'll explain why. As I was about to explain, I realized, uh-oh, I have an error, right? Here's why. If one firm lowers the price, okay, and the other firm leaves their price high, meaning they ignore it. So the Chevron lowers the price, and the ARCA looks and go, I'ma ignore it. And the Chevron lower the price even more, and the ARCA looks and go, I'ma ignore it. Where are the customers gonna go? The Chevron, who is lowering the price. Meaning, whenever a firm lowers their price, changes the price, and the competitor chooses to ignore, a lot of customers gravitate towards the firm that is changing the price if the other one is choosing to ignore. And when I say a lot, we mean consumers are very responsive to the firm that is changing the price. Let me repeat that. One firm lowers the price, the competitor ignores. Lowers it some more, the competitor ignores. This firm will get a big response from the market. This firm will get consumers responding, excuse me, in a big way. Meaning the demand curve comes out looking very elastic. You're going, uh-oh, I don't remember what that means. I have a video on elasticity. If you want to review it, please go ahead and review it. Big response from the market. The demand curve comes out looking very elastic when other firms ignore price changes. Okay? Now what about if they match the price change? Then it comes out looking a lot steeper. Okay? It comes out looking a lot steeper like this. This is the D match. And think about it again. Chevron lowers the price, but now ARCO is matching. Lowers it some more, ARCO matches. Meaning, there is not a big response anymore because the other firm is following suit. So the demand curve comes out looking very inelastic when a firm decides to match the price change. Okay? So the two responses, ignore versus match, produces two different demand curves. One is very elastic, one is very inelastic. Okay? Now, every demand curve has their marginal revenue partner. So, remember we did this in previous videos. If you have a demand curve, the marginal revenue sits under it and is pretty much parallel like this. Let's call this M, R, ignore. So we can match them up. So I'm using different colors. That's the beauty of the board. Okay? Same thing. You have another demand curve here. This is the D match. Okay? Let's put in that marginal revenue also parallel and sits below it. Let's call it MR match. Now here we go. We got two demand curves and we got two marginal revenue curves. So what is the kinked response? Now watch me very carefully. I want you to notice I am going to put in, okay, where the two demand curves meet. I'm going to put a little green dot so you can see it. This I'm going to call P0. And I'm going to explain why. This I'm going to label as what's called the cut off price. Okay? And let me tell you what's going on here. When firms are in this oligopoly structure and they're choosing not to collude and they're competing against each other, they're watching the price. They have a price that if it is the case where one firm goes above it, like it's too high, everybody's going to choose to ignore them. Let's take the gas stations across the street from each other, okay? I'm out here living in California, and I'm one of those driving down the street and I see 2 cents different. I'll do a donut in the street to get over there to buy gas 2 cents cheaper. I watch the prices. The competitors are watching each other too. If it is the case, let's say 2 gas stations across the street from each other, and let's say the ARCO decides I'm gonna charge $7 a gallon for gas today in 2023. Do you think the Chevron should match that? Nah, they're gonna ignore it. They're gonna say, if you wanna charge $7 a gallon for gas right now, that's your funeral. I am going to ignore you. Now, if they get in the competitive range where they go, all right, I'm gonna charge $4.50, then that might get the attention of the competitor. The point I'm trying to make is points above a cut-off point where the price is too high, firms are going to choose to ignore. So any point above the cutoff, what is relevant? Only the ignore demand curve that I'm shading. I'm sorry, not shading, I'm not shading anything. And I'm shading green. You see it? So any price above, ignore. Now once you get into the competitive range, when you say, wait a minute, they're charging $4.50? Huh. Then the firms are going to start matching because they're like, you're trying to cut in on my market. So when your price gets too low, they jump off the ignore and they start to match. You see it? I'm shading it. So above, I'm going to ignore. You get into my competitive range, I'm going to start matching. Guess what? The marginal revenue does the same thing. The only difference is the cutoff, the ignore versus match, is tied to the quantity. So you see what I did? You see this cutoff price? I brought it down and that was my cutoff quantity. And let me show you how we map this one. I'm going to use blue so you could follow. Any quantity that's less than the cutoff quantity, I'm going to ignore. So all of these quantities that's less, let us ignore. I'll put some X's this time. Once you get to quantities that are above the cutoff quantity, we need to start matching. Okay, so you see beyond this, we gotta get to the match marginal revenue. Now, how do we get there? Slide down on the quantity and then start matching. The price is above, ignore demand curve. Get into my competitive range, I'ma match you. Quantity is less, marginal revenue is the ignore. Get to quantities higher, I'ma get on the marginal revenue match. If we should clean this up and combine it, this is what it looks like. It's actually pretty neat. So I'm gonna clean it up a bit. Let me start with the demand. Watch my path. We are ignoring and then we are matching. So it looks like this. We are ignoring and then we are matching. This is the demand curve combined. You see the kink? You see where the name comes from? That's the kink. Piece that kicks off. What about the marginal revenue? We are ignoring, we slide down, and then we are matching. So we are ignoring, we slide down, and then we are matching. You see it? You see the kink in the marginal revenue? The kink and the kink. So if firms choose not to collude, we get a kinked demand model for the oligopoly. Pretty neat, right? I hope this was helpful. That's the oligopoly for now. Until next time, when I use my board to explain, you take care.